Today's witness is called Samuel. He is medium height, about 60, a relaxed man with a rather quizzical expression, brown eyes, a large, handsome head, white-haired, but a feeling of vigour, energy, deep-voiced and articulate. Samuel will tell us of Uncle Bethesda, and of a carried bed, and of laughter and joy. The witness of Samuel. I remember once asking my school teacher whether I had any chance of becoming like my father and grandfather. Absolutely orthodox and devout, obeying every religious rule, never forgetting anything, fast or feast, prayer or blessing. Every chance, he said, if some of your sense of humour doesn't get in the way. I was slightly shocked. I remember I thought if he was being flippant. I'd asked serious questions. He'd given me a silly answer. I told my mother, who laughed and ruffled my hair and told me not to worry about it. As I grew older, I realised that my teacher had seen before I had that I would be rather like my laughing mother. She saw humour in everything, and it made her happy and popular till the day she died. I also see humour. I'm also, in my own way, very happy, although less popular. For the humour I have is an unerring nose for the ridiculous, the idiocy of men, the vanity, the hypocrisy, the whole mad comedy. So today, my father and grandfather safely buried, I am neither orthodox nor devout. I obey few rules and fast rarely. I offer blessings to no one and ask for none. It was not always so. I was an only son, and the disciplines of a very strict religious upbringing are hard. For generations my family have been keen watchdogs of the law, religious men and men of religion, not priests but wardens, not spiritual leaders but keepers of the rule book, inquisitors, men beyond reproach, heads of colleges, true Pharisees, custodians of absolute conformity. Good men, sincere men, men often in the middle of a forest unable to see the trees. I followed in their footsteps as expected, sat in their seats, took over their duties, became grave, keeping the irreverent and humorous side of my nature, inherited from my beloved mother, firmly in check. If it all got too much, I would visit her and we would laugh till we cried. I miss her sorely. A happening when I was nearly 40, some 20 years ago, a happening sweet in the mind and beyond explanation, finally decided me to live in a way more agreeable to my true self. The self seen so clearly long ago by my teacher. My mother's elder brother was born sickly, and by the time he was a young man had almost entirely lost the use of his legs. He had no belief in doctors at all, having been in their hands since birth. In the family he was known as Uncle Bethesda, which was not his name, but where he spent most of his life, at the pool of Bethesda here in Jerusalem. For years and years he lay on a low bed near the fifth arch, by the smaller pool. He lay with other incurables, believing, as they did, that the first run into the water, after the angel had moved the water, would be cured. An ancient legend. The problem was that no one knew when the angel would come, and there were many sufferings both nearer to the water and more active. So for year after year he lay there on his back, resigned, cheerful, he had my mother's humour, and pleasant. He was among friends, it was a community. As I grew up I used to visit him whenever I could, which was often, and when I left university and joined my father, I continued the habit. Later, when I took over certain religious duties at the Pharisaical College, my office was near the sheep gate, not far from the pools. It was no duty. I liked him. He was an interested, enthusiastic man, always encouraging, always proud of his neighbour. When I was a little boy, my mother would leave me with him and the other invalids and cripples for hours. Now the happening. I was in synagogue one Sabbath, Passover time, the Pharisee Mother Synagogue. Every part of the service perfect as written, as laid down. To every side, the serious, stern, righteous faces. The service ended and we were filing out. Suddenly, there was an excitement. One of the helpers at the pool came running. He was breathless, hardly able to speak. "Quick," he shouted, "your uncle!" My first thought was that he was dead. I set off at once. It wasn't far. And some of the synagogue elders and my colleagues came too. It was good of them, but I would have preferred to be alone. Grief is a private thing. As we drew near to the sheep gate, we saw an amazing sight. Not what it was, who it was. As a sight, it was ordinary. A man carrying a narrow bed on his head. Not unusual. A porter, a market carrier, walking slowly, carefully. A man of about 55, 60. It was my uncle. I stopped, my mouth open. I'd never seen him vertical. He saw me and proceeded at the same pace, watching his feet walking with a sort of wonder, smiling. He came to a standstill in front of me. "A man did it," he said to me. "A young man, no more than 35, dressed poorly with a Galilee accent. He stopped by me and we talked. He was friendly and had not heard the angel legend. I was telling him how, when the water moved, I always missed it. How, in any case, I could never be first. 'Do you really want to walk again?' he said. 'Then get up, walk, get up, pick up your bed and walk.' And I did. I had no doubts. I got up. I was very wobbly, and then I picked up my bed. I've always been strong in the arm. I picked up my bed and I walked, and here I am." I felt strange. My uncle, always lying on his back, was part of the order of life. I felt I was present at a great occasion beyond my understanding, to do with God and miracles. My uncle, with his bed in his hand, stood smiling at me. Then the most venerable and respected of the elders stepped forward. "Is it not written," he said, "that on the Sabbath it is wrong for a man to carry a burden? Do you not know it is wrong for you to be still carrying that bed?" The other elders lined themselves up by the man who had just spoken. A jury, a line of silent reproach. My uncle carefully lowered his bed to the ground and looked along the line. Then he looked at me and started to laugh. He put his hands on my shoulders and laughed like my mother till the tears ran down. He hugged me to him. He hung on to me, helpless, shaking, the laughter pouring from him like a great delirious wind of joy. Soon, for I put up no resistance, I was as helpless as he, as wet with tears, as incapable of speech. The wind of his joy swept away for ever the dustiness of my life. I picked up his bed and we walked away, not bearing to look back at the line of motionless, affronted faces. Once round the corner he stopped, drew himself up and straightened his features in a parody of the disapproval we had just left. He peered down at me, held it for a moment, and then collapsed in hysterics. And so we made our way home to my mother's for Sabbath lunch. 2 men, carrying an old bed, screaming with laughter, wet-eyed with joy and freedom.